In this video, we're going to take a look at how to use StatCrunch to compute confidence intervals. Then in a separate video, we'll take a look and see how to use StatCrunch for hypothesis tests. So in this technology lab, we'll learn how to use StatCrunch to find a confidence interval for an application involving a proportion and a mean. And as you complete each example, then copy-paste your StatCrunch results into a Word document, and when you've done all of the examples, there should be 4 of them, then submit in Canvas. And assume that all requirements are met for the following problems. We're only going to take a look at the technology piece. So for the first problem, on confidence intervals, we're going to take a look at a proportion. A certain drug can be used to reduce the acid produced by the body and heal damage to the esophagus due to acid reflux. In clinical trials, 220 out of 235 patients suffering from acid reflux disease were healed after 8 weeks. Calculate and interpret a 98% confidence interval for the proportion of patients who were healed after 8 weeks. Then copy and paste your StatCrunch results into a Word document. So I've got the steps for StatCrunch. The first thing we're going to do is number 1, if you have raw data, we'll enter the data into the spreadsheet. We don't have raw data. This time we have summary, 220 out of 235. Select Stat, then Proportion Stats, one sample, and then choose either with data or with summary. For this problem, we're going to choose with summary. And then we're going to go through and enter the number of successes and the number of trials. And choose the confidence interval button, enter the level of confidence, leave the method as standard walled, and click on compute. All right, so those are the general information. So access StatCrunch in our class. So you'll go to My Math Lab, click on StatCrunch. When the StatCrunch opens, click on Visit the StatCrunch website. Open StatCrunch. And now we're going to follow the directions. We're going to select Stat, Proportion Stats, one sample, and we have a summary. If we had with data, we would type the data into the first column and select with data. But we're going to go with summary. The number of successes goes in the first box. So the first box says in clinical trials, 220 out of 235 patients. So 220 is the number of successes, and the number of observations is 235. We're going to perform a confidence interval, so you click confidence interval. Type in the level of confidence that we want, which is 98%, so that will be 0.98. Leave it as standard walled, and then go ahead and click on compute. So this is these are the results that you want to copy and paste. You can copy or you can take a snip with the snip tool. And I'm going to copy those and paste them in our, there we go. So there's our one sample summary. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and interpret what that means. So notice we've got the count 220, total 235. The sample proportion is your p hat. So this piece right here is p hat. That means that's your 220 divided by 235. Standard error is what we're going to use. We don't need it because it already has computed the lower limit and upper limit for us. So our confidence interval is 0.899 if you round to 2 places, 0.90 to 0.97. So that's the technology piece, has calculated that for us. So our interpretation is, I am 98% confident the proportion of patients who were healed after 8 weeks is between 0.90 and 0.97. So the confidence interval takes your sample p hat, which is the 220 divided by 235, 0.936, and that's going to be exactly in the middle of your confidence interval. And then it takes your margin of error and adds and subtract. Remember that that's p hat plus or minus whatever the margin of error was, ends up being your confidence interval. So that's how you use StatCrunch to find a confidence interval for a proportion. So what you'll do is you'll copy paste your results into your Word document. All right, next item we're going to take a look at is how do we use StatCrunch to calculate a confidence interval about a mean. So in this problem, in the year 2015, a random sample of 35 households had a mean expenditure for energy of $1,618 with a standard deviation of $321. So I'm going to write that down. Our X bar, mean of the sample, is 1618. Standard deviation of the sample is 321, and our sample size is 35. Calculate and interpret a 95% confidence interval for the mean household expenditure for energy in 2015. Copy-paste your StatCrunch results into the Word document. So this time we're going to go to StatCrunch. Again, we have summary statistics. We don't have data set. We're going to go into Stat, T-Stats this time, highlight one sample, data if you have data, we don't, we have a summary. And then we're going to go ahead, our entry is the sample mean, the sample standard deviation, and the sample size. So when you get to StatCrunch, let me close out our last one. This time we're going to go to Stat, T-Stats, one sample with summary, and type in the values that we have. So our mean was 1,618. Our sample standard deviation was 321. Our sample size N was 35. We want to do a confidence level and then 95%. Click on compute, and there are our results again. So let me take a look at that. All right, so our confidence interval, we have the lower limit of 1,507, and I'll go ahead and just use whole numbers this time. Use whatever the homework instructs you to. I'm going to round it just to the whole dollar number, and then 1,728. So remember, this is our X bar plus or minus the margin of error, gives us our 95% confidence interval. So the interpretation is, I am 95% confident, so I'll write it down. I am 95% confident that the mean expenditure per household for energy is between, so means have units, these are in dollars, so it's between $1,507 and $1,728 in the year 2015. So we've taken our sample data and then estimated a population based on the sample. All right, and that's how to use StatCrunch.